Welcome to episode 5 of What's That Sound podcast. My name is Stu Watts, and today I interview Jackson McRae, who's a pop producer from Melbourne, Australia. We talk about storytelling and why that is so important when you're songwriting, why sometimes being a good hang is better than being good at your instrument, as well as how sometimes it takes longer than just one session to lock in with an artist. For all that and more, stay tuned. This is What's That Sound podcast.
You're listening to What's That Sound with your host, Stu Watts. Welcome, everyone, to another episode of What's That Sound podcast. My name's Stu Watts. Today, my guest joining me is Jackson McRae. Jackson, welcome.
Hello, thank you for having me. Thank you.
Thanks for being here.
That's all right. Thank you.
Now, let's start off just by letting everyone know who you are, what you do, all of that fun stuff.
So my name's Jackson, obviously. I am a musician / producer / writer / every other thing that I can do.
Yep.
Yeah, I do a lot of session work for people on drums, guitar, keys. I do a lot of production work in my little studio here. Bit of songwriting with that as well. A lot of like remote drum tracking and stuff. And then, I do a bunch of like teching on tours, like I'm playback tech, and I do some musical director work through that as well. So, I try to do it all.
Unreal, man. Busy man.
I try.
How long have you been doing that for?
Like my whole life, man. Like everybody that's kind of doing it for, at this point, everybody's been doing music their whole life. But full time for probably like 6-7 years now, maybe. Probably 6.
Beautiful. Tell us about your upbringing. Where did music come into play for you?
So I had a very musical mum and dad, and I guess a musical extended family in general. Like mum was the first person to kind of give me piano lessons and all that kind of stuff. And her father was a really good pianist as well. Dad plays the drums amongst other things, and he kind of, played in a bunch of blues pub kind of bands through the 90s and 80s, both in like Sydney, Newcastle, and Melbourne.
Unreal.
So just kind of grew up with instruments in the house and all that kind of stuff. And
did they at all pass on any kind of advice to you like early on, or was it like you just learning for yourself?
Like I think early on they were just like trying to make sure I enjoyed it and just learn. And then when I started doing gigs, or if I used to go to gigs with Dad, like I remember one of the first things that he ever taught me was like, we're at some gig and he's like, "Hey, that's the sound guy. We're going to go talk to the sound guy and be nice to him because, he's going to either make you sound shit or bad. Shit or good." So, just that kind of thing, just in terms of like how to work with people in the industry.
Navigating that landscape.
Important, I think.
Oh, it's super important. It's almost under talked about, which is, I guess, part of the reason why I'm doing this podcast in the first place, because you don't hear a lot of the kind of backstory of, especially in Australia, engineers and producers. There's just not really that much that's talked about. So it's really important for me to kind of unpack that and hear people's stories and things like that. So awesome, man. So like that was cool. So that was when you were young, obviously, starting to figure out music. When did you start playing music?
I started playing piano from like maybe the age of 6. And then kind of like picked up drums and guitar at like the age of 12-ish. Never really got guitar lessons, just kind of taught myself and just going off like, knowledge of piano stuff and just basic music theory and all that kind of stuff, was able to jump in there. And then, drums, I got lessons through high school and then did that through university and that whole thing. Ended up down the Academia jazz route.
Right. And was that, did you get a lot from schooling or?
Yeah, especially like on the drum kit, like going into a jazz school. Like I went to Monash here and I also did a stint at NYU. in New York, obviously, and I never wanted to be a jazz musician really, but I think I just wanted to play drums through university, and also just got a lot in terms of musicality, musical development of myself, and understanding of, I guess, rhythm and groove, and how rhythm sections lock together, which then can translate through to production work, and how different parts of the song work together. And then obviously there was a lot of stuff about harmony and melody and voice leading and all that fancy stuff.
Yeah, that's super cool. Was who are the musical idols for you when you were coming up, or even like teenager, even to now?
Yeah, sure. I guess like when I was a teenager, I was really big into like Radiohead, Death Cab for Cutie, Muse, that kind of whole thing.
Yep. Intellectual
Idols-wise,
alternative.
yeah, like the alternative rock / indie world was like pretty bread and butter for me back then. Arctic Monkeys kind of thing,
Yeah.
Yeah, but like growing up was kind of, fed on a diet of like Deep Purple, The Who, Rolling Stones, Pink Floyd, those more the 60s, 70s rock kind of influences. Mum was a big fan of like the Eagles as well, and also like Meatloaf, which, the Eagles have great melodies, great ear for melodies and harmony and all that kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah, idols-wise, I don't really know. I find it hard to kind of single out, one person or, one band or whatever. But yeah, just always tried to take in everything. And I remember one of my first drum teachers, Brian Chimpinski, was he just said, you got to take in everything, because the more you take in, the more work you're going to get, So I've just kind of always tried to implement that philosophy. The more you can do, the more work you're going to get, the more well-rounded you're going to be.
Yeah, for sure. It's just funny when you're young and you hear those bits of advice, especially when you're a closed-minded teenager and you only like what you like, and you're not really interested in hearing. But there are some things from, especially drum teachers or whoever it might be, that stick with you and that you remember into your adult life. It's pretty funny how that sort of thing happens.
Yeah, for sure.
What about the production side of things? When did that sort of come into play?
I guess I was always like writing and making stuff on like even GarageBand as a teenager. I remember I got my first MacBook and I was like, fuck yeah. Sorry, I don't know if I can swear, but I was like, hell yeah, GarageBand. Like, this is mad. And just would like write stuff and send it to friends, and they'd write stuff and send it back, and just that whole teenage band kind of thing.
Yeah.
So I guess you could kind of like trace it back to that. Yeah, I guess production for me came from being in bands and writing demos and having no money and recording our own demos and trying to figure out things and being like, great, I have a SM58 and that's all. That's the only mic I own in the world. How do I get a drum sound out of that?
Yeah.
That kind of thing. And then it just kind of grew from there. And over time you acquire gear, and there's a lot of lessons that were learned along the way there.
I saw your recent post about all your drum gear. That's crazy, man.
Yeah. I did a bit of a cleanup day yesterday.
That's
crazy. I realized I have way more snare drums than I thought. And
Unreal.
I haven't even opened up a bunch of the other cases.
Dude, that's crazy. Like, I mean, I'm a drummer. I was always like, I've only ever owned 2 drum kits in my life. And, I play guitar as well. And I've got a few more guitars than I do drum kits. But it's funny. Like, I'm not the sort of, geeky, nerdy sort of about gear. Like, I love the sound of things. And I like to discover sonically how things sound, but I was never one to like really buy a whole bunch of gear. I was always like the make do with what you got type of guy.
For sure.
Yeah.
I think that's definitely, the good place to kind of start in. And then I'm lucky enough now at the point where I can have 3 different kits that do 3 different things and be able to select between them, or
well,
but also like you have way more guitars I have way more guitars than I have drums as well. You know, because I feel like a lot of drums do the kind of, they sound like drums. You know, to a point.
Yeah.
But whereas with guitars, even just single coils versus humbuckers, etc., etc.,
Huge difference.
or a Telecaster feels different to play to a Stratocaster, so you get something different out of it. You know, like that kind of thing.
Yeah, absolutely. And I think obviously drums are really expensive, and you know, to buy a whole drum kit, a good drum kit, is not cheap. So that's another thing. Did you have any producer or engineer idols early on, and then also who are your idols now? Who do you look to for influences?
I guess I didn't really have any idols early on. I think it took me a long time to figure out what a producer was, you know? And it was only kind of through doing it, or like maybe only it took me a while to realize, like, oh, I do this, you know? So I was kind of not really clued into that whole world of things. But, you know, there's a lot of... I work with a lot of great Australian people that I think are incredible. You know, just some of them are my close friends, like Hamish Patrick or Gab Strum. Lauren Coots is also amazing. I do a bit of work with Oscar Dawson from Holy Holy, and he does a bunch of production and engineering. He's amazing. I love working with him. Yeah, like there's so many. And like, I think more people need to understand that what they do is like actually production. Like there's a lot of times where I'll do sessions with an artist and they'll kind of bring in their demo, and it's like, half of this is actually pretty cool. Like, we can totally use half of this. I'm not here just to redo your work for the sake of redoing it. You know, like,
I mean, that's part of the charm. It's like we all bring in, I've said this so many times, is we all bring in our own influences and our own styles into our production. Obviously, that's what makes us that's what attracts people to us, is our certain stylistic choices and things like that. But it's the same with an artist. The artist will hear things a certain way. They'll want to do things a certain way. And so even if they aren't that good at like making sounds or producing things, the things that they make is still coming from their brain, you know? And it's like, well, this is what you thought it should sound like, so let's do something with it. I love that.
100%. Even you know, someone like Johanna Bright, Lashes, that we've both worked with, like you know, she will hear a lot of the shit in her head. The kind of, maybe the thing is, like, people like that don't just have the language yet to kind of, you know, be able to say what they want to do with it. But that doesn't make them any less of a producer, because they hear it all, and like she'll totally tell me, no, I don't want that, I want this. Or we're working on something the other day where she knew all the vocal range that she wanted, and like where things were panned, and you know, all that kind of stuff. And it's like, cool, that's like production.
That's a producer.
Like you're designing the world in which the music sits and where it sits in that world, kind of thing.
I've noticed with your music, a lot of the stuff that you've either worked on or produced yourself, a lot of it has kind of an 80s pop influence. Is that intentional, or is that just coincidental?
Yeah, I think I don't think it's intentional. I think it's coincidental and just a byproduct of like liking those synths, you know? I think a lot of it, a lot of music is kind of 80s throwback or pastiche these days anyway, you know, referential of the 80s. Even the fact that you go to any studio and there'll be a Prophet and a Juno, you know, which were synths, you know, first built in the 70s and 80s kind of vibe. I definitely try to veer away from like going to the big synthwave kind of 80s thing, like Stranger Things style, you know, that kind of world. That's not quite me. It's cool, but it's not me. So yeah, I just kind of start and then I figure it out. I don't know. I don't have a process. I just keep going. I just make noise until something clicks, you know?
That's cool. That's cool. Is that how you've always done it, or did it look different early on?
Yeah, I think so. And like, obviously you always start with like a reference point. So you're not just shooting in the dark.
Mm-hmm.
But yeah, I've always just kind of just kept going until something clicks, or the other side of that coin is until you give up.
Yeah.
You just can't quite figure it out sometimes. But yeah, and like when I do writing sessions with people, we generally get a vibe of where we kind of want to head. And then my kind of thing is like, hey, I'm just gonna make noise for a bit and just shout out if something clicks. If something doesn't click, like I'm just gonna throw the colors at the wall.
I love it.
And we will see what we actually want to paint with today, kind of vibe.
Does that look the same in pretty much every session, or do you ever come to sessions with an already produced track that you're like, I think you'd be great for this song?
I don't do so much of that. Most of my stuff is either, or like, if they bring in a demo that's like, hey, this is my demo, I want you to produce it.
Mm-hmm.
Then we kind of go through stems or whatever and figure out, what they actually like, what they want to change, what they want it to sound like. So that's more like working towards a predefined kind of thing. But in most like writing sessions, it's just kind of from scratch. And sometimes I'll come in with like a pitch, or I'll be like, hey, I did this voice note last night, which, might have a bit of a hook, or even like, like sometimes, like we'll just come in and or someone will have written just like a paragraph of like, hey, this is a concept of a song. Like, and it can even just be bullet points of like, narrative or themes or colors or, just stuff like that.
I love it. So a lot of it's kind of like mood-based or storytelling aspect to the music. It kind of influences the music.
Yeah, definitely. And
That's
I
cool.
think that's kind of always been my thing. Like, I'm very much more tuned into the narrative of a song rather than the production when I'm producing it, and everything that I do has to back up what the narrative of the song is doing and the voice, Like some of my favorite artists are people like, I guess, Phoebe Bridgers, who is an incredible storyteller, or Andy Schauf, or, even Death Cab, like, great stories.
Absolutely.
Yeah, I've kind of always been clued into that more so than like the production. You know what I mean?
Yeah. So what are some of the challenges that you see in a session if it's, based on a theme or a story and you're not really getting that? Does that happen, or how do you troubleshoot that?
I think you just got to remember you're just working with people, and people can have off days, or you can just not click with the person. And so the first thing I try to do is just like remove any pressure of having to reach an outcome. Like the journey, or the fact that you're just in there making something is a net positive. So like if you remove the pressure of like, oh, we have to figure out this bloody chorus, or then you just stress yourself out and nothing ever gets done.
Yep.
But it's like you just kind of go searching through references, or you be like, what are you hearing? Like what song does this remind you of, kind of thing. And then you kind of pick through, the 5 songs that they say, and then you figure out what parts they actually like about each song, and that kind of thing. I also really like when doing a session, writing or production, if we're like struggling on a part, especially struggling on a part song-wise, I like stepping back from the computer and just picking up an acoustic guitar and being like, does this song sit with just an acoustic guitar? Is there a song there? And then you can take away all the distractions of everything that's going on in your Ableton session or whatever. And you'd be like, oh, no, that lyric is actually the thing that's like holding this all up.
Yep.
So,
that's awesome.
you fix that lyric, punch it back in, and then, the rest of the session kind of just unlocks itself in a way,
Yeah. Yep. Beautiful. And do you prefer high energy sessions, or do you prefer somewhat chilled, relaxed atmosphere?
I think there's a place for both of them. And I think a good session can have both of those kind of parts to it, I think it's it's hard to start at 10 out of 10 right out of the gate, especially if it's somebody that you haven't really worked with before.
Yeah.
But there's like always that moment when it clicks between you and the other person or the people in the room, and everybody kind of feels like, oh, we actually might have something here, like this is great. And then that just naturally kind of, picks up and becomes, more high energy. Like, I remember I did a session with some friends. It was probably last year, Lauren Coots and Grace Hughes, who works under York. And we all came in the morning and were like all a little bit hungover and like a little bit worse for wear. And we were like, oh, so who are we writing for? Are we writing for you? Oh, no, I thought we were writing for you. Oh, but are we going to write for you? And it was just kind of like the morning was a bit of a slog.
Just a shit show, yeah.
And then it got to the point where it was all of a sudden it just clicked and it was like, oh, cool. Like there's actually something here. And then it just kind of carried itself, and it became a more high energy thing. And it was awesome.
Do you have a process then for figuring out, whether you, in fact, just like want to work with that person in the first place? Or if something goes wrong, or if you're like, I don't really want to work with this person, is there a process there, or is it kind of just spur of the moment?
I think you kind of get a vibe of who you want to work with based off, their output of music and like whether you like the music firstly, and then if you so happen to know them as a person, you can have a chat with them beforehand, or if you get introduced to them. That's all. You kind of just do, like, you just feel it out beforehand. And, but then, there's been sessions where it hasn't quite clicked with people. And, like, it just kind of comes back to, like I said before, they're just people. Like, you're not going to work perfectly with every single person. I think I just always try to still be, as not like a nice person and a good version of me, regardless of whether we have a song that's working or whether, I feel like I'm pulling all the weight in the session, or, regardless, like, you've agreed to kind of be there. But also if it's just not working, like, I think both people will kind of know that, hey, this day is not actually going anywhere. And you just be honest and just like communicate clearly and don't be a dick about it. And, it generally works. It's like if you go on a date, right? And the date's like not quite working. What are you going to like sit through a 4-hour date? Or if within the first hour, I'm very much of the opinion that, you just kind of be like, hey, thanks for your time. This is, just kind of not working. But that being said, music can take a little bit longer than a date. So, generally don't write it off in the first hour if you don't have a good feeling about the session.
Yeah. So then the opposite to that, what's a really good session look like to you then?
I think, I love writing with friends and people that I've worked with in the past, and people where throughout the session you can see the development in like your writing relationship with them. Like, to bring it back to somebody like Yo, we've done tons of sessions, and if you look back at the very first one that we ever did versus how we work now, it's really nice just to kind of see that growth and, also like her development as a songwriter and a producer and, all that kind of thing. Like, I think a good session is a session where, there's obviously an outcome and you both really, really like the outcome, but also, you both having a good time and it feels effortless, or, even the parts that are harder and a little bit of slog and a bit, tricky to figure out, it's still fun. It's still fun trying to crack that puzzle, so.
Yeah. Well, I think remembering that the life that we live is pretty unique, and, a lot of people don't get to work on their passion, and that alone is somewhat enough to humble yourself and make you feel good about what you're doing during the day. Even if it is a shitty session, you can be like, I'm fucking making music. Like, who cares?
Yeah, exactly.
Like, it's mad.
Yeah.
Like, yeah, that's awesome, man.
Yeah, it is.
And
I was going to say, that is
think...
something I...
Sorry.
I was just going to say, that is something that I try and, remind myself of and kind of live in that space. That, sure, it's a hobby, but it's like, I think a lot of our first loves, and we're all really lucky to be able to do this for work or even just do it full stop. There's so many people in the world that just never had any kind of opportunity to get to a point of downloading Ableton, right? Let alone, like making music through it or even making money from it kind of thing. So, yeah.
And I think another point that you touched on is it's about building the relationship with the person is super important. We don't want to, most of the time, we don't want to just do one session with someone and then move on and keep having that, because there's no way that you're going to, like you said, break through those outcomes of, the first session might be not so great, but then, you get to the 5th or 6th song and you're like, all right, we're actually starting to figure out how each other works.
Yeah, exactly.
Even something as simple as like what key you like to sing in, that can make a huge difference to whether the song sounds good or not,
Yeah, for sure.
It's definitely about those relationships that you build over time, 100%.
Yeah, definitely.
Yep. What do you think then, personally, is some of the tougher things to navigate as a producer in the music industry?
I think just people's emotions, and the fact that a lot of the time, you're working on songs that have a lot of meaning to people, and it's just about making sure you're like ticking the boxes that need to be ticked for them. Yeah, and I don't know. I think music is such an emotive and creative kind of art form that you just got to make sure you check your ego or leave your shit at the door, kind of vibe. Yeah. What was it?
It's more just like, the difficult things to navigate as a producer. I mean, like,
as a
definitely
producer.
session wise, there's difficulties. Like you said, there's interpersonal stuff and things like that. But also, like, what about things in, you don't just work as a producer. What are some of the difficulties in the actual music industry that you find yourself having to navigate?
Yeah. I think probably kind of the easiest one, and maybe the one that comes straight to mind, is just negotiating money and just also understanding you have a worth. Like, I think it's very easy to sometimes feel like, oh, I'm playing music that, so if someone doesn't want to pay me, like, oh, that's all right. And like, it took me a while to figure out how to be like, no, I think I'm worth this much, and feel comfortable standing by that,
Yep.
How
did you sort of figure that out? How did you figure that process out?
I think just like talking to friends or, people that kind of do what you do, and like that's why, I had, there's a guys in Sydney, Ross James and Dave Jenkins, and when I was kind of starting out, Ross especially, I was like, hey, Ross, like I've been offered this tour. I don't know how much to charge. Like what? And Ross was like, well, what are the shows? Where are they? Cool, this amount. And I'm like, that seems ridiculous. And it's like, no, that's fair. So, in return, like if anybody ever has stuff like that, I always, am open. That door's open for people to come talk to me about that kind of thing. By no means am I like the Bible on it or anything. Like, and different budgets work for different people. But also, at the end of the day, you just got to make sure that you're working with people you like to work with, and you're being treated nicely, but also you're treating people nicely as well. Like, especially with touring, there'll be so many better like drummers out there than me or whatever. But what you got to understand, it's like you play the drums or whatever for like maybe 2 hours that day, whereas you're hanging out in a bus or in a green room or on a plane for like the other 8 to 10. And that's kind of what you're getting paid for. So like,
that's really,
regardless
really, really
if you're
important. I love that.
Yeah, regardless of if you're the best drummer or musician in the world or whatever, if you're not a nice person, you're not going to get work. Or if, you can't hang in a group or can't fit in with whoever's hired you, it's just not going to work out. So it's just a people game.
It really is. It's so much about not necessarily how you know, how many people you know or who knows you. It's about what people think of you.
Exactly. Yeah.
And because there's obviously so many talented people out there in the world that can do what you do, if not as well, but better. You're absolutely
for
right.
sure.
It's like, why should they hire? Why would they want to work with someone that is not easy to work with just because they're a good musician? Yeah, they might look good on stage, but the rest of the, you know, 80% of the stuff that you're going to be doing with them, whether it's financial stuff, whether it's, you know, hanging out, whether it's other business things, marketing, all of those little things that make a difference to the end result. If the music is the most important thing, it's just not sustainable. It's just not really going to work.
Yeah, I kind of, and I've kind of spoken about this before, but I kind of always think of it like a triangle. It's like, and it can work for both when you take a gig and also when someone wants to hire you for a gig. And the triangle is like money, music, and like people. And like for taking a gig, like generally you want 2 out of the 3. So either you really like the music and you really like the people and you're right that the money's not so good, or you really like the people and you really like the money, but the music maybe isn't your thing, but because the people are so great, you don't really care, you know? Rarely I will go for a music and money gig where the people aren't great. That's just, I just can't be in that vibe if the people aren't great. But it also goes when people book you, right? Sure, you can be great at the music, but you know, you also got to be great at the you know, the people kind of thing. Otherwise, you know, they're just not going to pay you the money kind of vibe. You like it's all about being able to work with people.
Well, and it's that, people. and it's the future. It's the future that you're looking for as well. You know, they might pay you for that one gig and be like, all right, see you later, but then they're not going to book you again. That's really what's even more important is the future jobs.
Yeah, for sure.
You're just going to end up homeless. Hey, thanks so much for listening so far. There is plenty more to come, so don't go anywhere. I just wanted to let you know that this podcast is made completely independently by myself with no sponsors. So if you like what you hear and you would like to show your support, you can send a donation to the PayPal link, paypal.me/whatsthatsound. The link is also in the show notes. Thanks so much for your support, and let's get back to it. All right, so now let's get a bit nerdy, and let's talk about what's some of your favorite gear. Let's start off with hardware. Favorite gear.
Hardware. I guess like Apollo, like 8, Universal Audio Apollo 8. I love it. I wish I bought an 8P back in the day just for the extra preamps, but like. You know, incredible interface, incredible converters, incredible software. And like before I mentioned that, you know, I bought a lot of gear growing up and made a lot of mistakes. Just that classic thing of like, I just kind of wish that I bought this interface a lot sooner than I did.
Right.
You know, like I bought the $200 interface, I bought the $400 interface, bought the $800, the $1,200. And I should have just probably like got one of these a lot earlier, you know?
Yeah.
So it's awesome.
What about microphones?
Also hardware-wise, I've been using, I borrowed off a friend lately, these tube preamps called Sebitron. It's a VMP 4000E. They're Australian-made. They're just awesome for like drums. They sound really warm and like mushy on. They're great for bass. Cool. You can kind of drive it a bit and really saturate it with bass, and sound great with vocals too.
Beautiful.
But hardware in terms of like synth world, it's like probably going to be my Prophet 6. Like I just I love that guy. I've had it for you know, probably 5 years or so, and it's just awesome. It's just one of those things that it just does it. I know my way around it really quickly now, you know. But that being said, I just found out they updated the software and now it's got a bunch of hidden features. So I have to update the software and relearn it again. But
it's all fun, isn't it?
Yeah, it's all fun.
Yeah. And microphones?
Microphones, I really like, I have this old Sennheiser MD441.
Oh, yeah, beautiful.
You know, the big long silver boys?
Yep.
That's great. Great on drums, great on guitars, great on vocals. I do have to get it serviced though. They have like an internal pop filter that I think just because it's so old is like deteriorate a little bit, so it can get a bit plosive heavy at times.
Yep.
But what else? Actually, I have a couple like, do you know Warm Audio?
Yep.
Like they're kind of, they do knockoffs of, not knockoffs, like reproductions of things. I got a couple of their mics. I've got some like KM84 copies, and
I'm looking to get them. To be honest, like, actually that's probably my next purchase.
They're incredible. They are so good.
Yeah,
like for $1,200 for a pair, ridiculous value for money.
Yeah.
They're like, for a small diaphragm condenser, they're like ridiculously warm. Not too like nasally or harsh in the top end, which like people say
that's my current problem. Is I've got the I just bought that Audix drum set probably 11 years ago. And they came with the Audix 51s, which at the time were fine, but now that I'm working on so much stuff, it's just so brittle in that cymbal area, and it hurts.
Yeah. Well, that's the thing. Like I've had, especially for drum overheads, I've used like, AKG C414s, and I own some 214s as well as at a point. And I just found the top end for my ears was just too brittle. And sure, I mean, like, like the 414 is an incredible mic. Everybody loves it. I'm not trying to crap on it. It just wasn't working for me. Yeah. In my room on my kit. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And I think that's the kind of thing to understand, that sure, like you can go buy the best microphone in the world, but it's got to work for your application.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
That kind of thing.
I mean, that was the similar thing for me for the D6 kick drum mic. Everyone was frothing about it back in 2010, and it was like, oh man, it's the go-to mic for kick drums. I've never liked it. I've never, even though I make like punk rock music and, it just still doesn't sound any good to me. So I hear you with that for sure.
100%. Also, these SM7s are great.
Yep.
I do find they benefit from like an inline boost, which I actually didn't plug in today, but hot tip for everybody out there. Inline boosts are great.
Just eliminates a little bit of the noise.
Yeah,
Absolutely.
Exactly.
Yep. What about software? Let's go in the box.
In the box, Ableton's a big one. Also, things like Splice.
Let's talk about Ableton for a little bit, because I mean, everyone uses their own DAW for whatever they found good about it and found it easy to learn is usually the main thing for most people. But what about Ableton was it for you that you like about it?
It's a really good question, and I've thought about it in the past, and I'm not really sure, because like I started on GarageBand, and then bought Logic, and then somehow then got Ableton, and I think I started doing a lot more live stuff with Ableton at the time, and a lot of like musical director work. So I think just within the space of 6 months, I just put in crazy hours into Ableton. And Ableton's got its quirks, and like, like it's a bit backwards in terms of like the way it buses, and you can't really mix on it. It's hard to record drums. They only just put in like comp folders on this update. Yeah,
I've never understood that DAW. It's so difficult for me. There's not I mean, I make electronic music, but it's not. I'm not that in with that electronic music world. So I always just found it really convoluted. But
it took me a while to get my head around it at first. Even just the fact that it's got like the two view modes, like the arrangement mode and the session mode. Mostly I work in the arrangement mode, which is that classic left to right, like Logic, Pro Tools, GarageBand, whatever. But I remember early on actually being really into the way that drum racks worked in Ableton. I could never quite figure out drum programming in Logic. And, I was also young and like didn't really know much about drum programming in general. And it was 2010, 2011 and Splice wasn't a thing and, all that kind of stuff. Whereas like the fact that Ableton just had like this thing you could drag in called drum rack, and then you could literally just drag and drop samples into wherever you wanted them to go. And I haven't been back to Logic since, to be honest. So maybe Logic also does that. From memory though, it had some weird like plug-in where the GUI was just like ridiculously overwhelming, and like I could never see what I was doing properly, and you had to go file, select your sample or whatever.
Yeah.
I just found Ableton just really quick and easy, and even in the layout and the coloring of it, it's just simplistic. And the things that are highlighted are that, or the things you need to know are generally highlighted or whatever.
Love it. Well, I think it's an important point you make is that once you get to know something and you're quick at it and spend hours putting in the time to learn something, the better that you'll be at it. And it doesn't really matter what it is to get to the end result. It's about
100%. Yeah.
It's about what you can get out of it and how it can benefit you. And eliminating friction is a huge thing. It's like you don't want to be sitting there with a client for half an hour trying to figure something out. It's like, just make it happen. Let's get it working.
For sure. Yeah, that's definitely it. And they all kind of like all the doors are all great. They're all going to do their thing. I guess just kind of pick the one that works for you.
Yep.
That being said, I have been on the Pro Tools game lately, just with like drum recording stuff, just because it's a lot better at that than Ableton. Even just in the way like it does like comp folders and things like Beat Detective or things like that. If somebody's like, hey, I want this super gridded, I can very easily do that in Pro Tools. Yeah. Whereas in Ableton, like sure, Ableton has a warp feature, but when you're recording 16 channels of audio at the same time, you can't warp them all relative to each other. Like you just get crazy phasing issues kind of thing.
Yeah.
But yeah, learning Pro Tools lately has just been like, it's like trying to speak a new language. It's crazy.
Yeah.
And I think I've just been on Ableton for so long that, it's just, it was a struggle. But, it's good to kind of do that and, work the brain and not get too comfortable in your own thing.
Yeah. Because like you said, there's always new features that they're coming out with or on different, softwares. Yeah. That, excuse me, could benefit you for, could really just improve your workflow. It's important not to be closed off to that sort of stuff. So
yeah, exactly.
What else? What other software?
Software-wise, I guess, one of the probably, man, I'll use these on every session. Sound Toys, sweet.
Yeah.
Like Echo Boy, Decapitator, Little Alter Boy, the Micro Shift, even like Primal Tap, the other delay that they do.
Yep.
That's great. That's cool for some really good choruses and stuff as well. Yeah, like.
And are you someone that like uses the plugins for what they're designed for, or do you try to get wacky sounds out of them?
Oh, both, depending on the context of what I'm trying to do.
Yeah.
But like like lately, I've just been using Echo Boy to kind of do more reverb kind of stuff. Like you just like I love how all of them just have that button that says tweak, and you just press it, then all of a sudden all these other options pop up. And so I've just been like cranking that diffusion, that kind of thing.
Cool.
Yeah, I love that. And in the reverb world, Valhalla, like incredible reverbs for not that much money, really.
Yeah. And they've got some amazing free plugins as well.
Yeah, they do. Like the Micro Freak or something. Or
Micro Freak and the Supermassive.
Yeah, that's wild. That one.
That's crazy. That plugin.
Yeah, I love that. What else software wise? I think a big thing for me was when I first before I really owned synths, like my Prophet and Moog, and I've had Junos and stuff in the past. Before that, like the Arturia kind of suite, pretty great for the amount of stuff you get in it. And now they've just put more and more stuff in it. It's even more than what it used to be.
Yeah.
Yeah. So that was I used to use that a lot at a certain point in my life. But actually, now that I just mentioned Junos, the Tal like Juno X plugin, is like so good. Like I forget what it's called. I think it's just Tal Juno, Tal Uno, and it's just like a Juno VST. And
beautiful.
from memory, it's maybe only like $40, or it was when I bought it. And It's ridiculous. I don't own a Juno anymore because of that.
Well, I'll have to look into that now that you've said that. That's like something that I might need to look into.
Yeah.
What about when it comes to, workflow? What about what are the sort of software workflow hacks that you've figured out over time to make your life easier?
Yeah, sure. I guess just like, like I said before, all my interfaces are like Universal Audio Apollos. Just like getting really used to their console software and like their input and output matrices. Like in this studio, which I share with my friends Sam Sproul and Matthew Wright, we have 3 Apollo interfaces chained together, and just like being able to go through their input-output matrix and just be like, cool, I want, these 4 inputs coming through these numbers in Ableton, and then I want these 4 inputs coming through, these are the 4, the next 4 in Ableton and all that kind of stuff. Just getting your head around that, because often, like, input 1 on your Apollo ends up being input 5 in Ableton.
Right.
Just like, can I fix that if, I need to, or am I going to be in the session and not be able to find where my input is?
Yeah.
Like, just making sure you're across all that kind of stuff has been a big help for me.
Love it.
Yeah, and then, I love all, like, the Universal Audio, like, preamp software and all that kind of stuff, all their effects that they do.
Yeah. So keeping streamlined sounds like it's like a big part of your workflow.
Yeah, like we have a lot of stuff here, but making sure that it kind of works, and it's like a lot of it's always patched into like particular holes, so I know I can just walk over to my Prophet and just go play it. I know exactly where that's coming through, or like we got a little Dropbox over there, and so I know that if I plug into channel 1 in the Dropbox, exactly where that's going to come up because it's all hardwired at the back of the desk, kind of thing.
Beautiful.
Yeah.
Unreal. And when it comes to like a good sounding mix, this is a really hard question, I know, but what is a good sounding mix to you? Or a good production?
Yeah, okay. I was going to say, I'm not really a mix guy, and I should probably be better than I am. But I think good production, we'll start there. It's like making sure that what you're doing is not getting in the way of the song, which is kind of what I was talking about earlier. Like, my main focus is always the song, the narrative, the emotions. Like, where is the tension in that? And then where do I, or what do I do, to add to that? And not get in the way of it, not, be distractive to it. Yeah, that's kind of what I kind of go for. And then obviously you can you want to create a world that the character and the narrative sits in, and you want that to be cohesive and, all your different elements working together. And, I think that's really important.
Unreal. What about,
mix-wise?
Oh, sorry. Yeah, go ahead, for sure.
I was just going to go with just mix-wise. Yeah, I don't do much mixing, like I said, so it's a bit hard to know, like, in terms of what does a good mix sound like. I think a good mix experience, though, is like working with people that kind of listen to your notes and like don't try to put too much of themselves in it, and like remove the ego from it. And because like mixing, you can either be super creative and do your put your flavor on it, and that's a lot of the time why people get work, but also sometimes you just like you just need it just to kind of clean up what they've done and just make sure that it's working together. You don't need to do so many moves on it. Like I've just had experiences where you just want to be like, hey, can you just use my wet stem? And they're like, no, I'm going to recreate something with like your dry stem and put my own reverb on it. It's like, cool, well, it's not really what I wanted, but
you've just changed the whole production.
Yeah. Which, like, also, I'm, you got to be open to hearing that feedback from, mix engineers or other producers or artists and stuff. And so that's always something that, I'm mindful of being open to, hey, maybe that thing that I did wasn't actually good. But yeah.
Well, I think it's important
a good mix
to have a good communication between the mix engineer and the producer. Is like,
definitely,
because there are some times where you need to be heavy-handed, but then there are times, like you said, where it's like, no, I want this to sound exactly the way that I had it, just cleaner. And it's like, don't change it, just make it better. And that can be really difficult for some people when they are used to doing things a certain way. But at the end of the day, everyone has their job or their vision of how they want this to end up, and a lot of the time, it's more likely to be in the producer/artist's hands to that end goal, and sometimes you're just there to be the conduit to get it to that end goal.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, it's a really good point. And kind of like the main thing that we keep coming back to here is that this whole industry is based around communication and working with people.
Yeah.
Like, you know, it's the music industry and everything's based around music, but if you can't work with people or you can't communicate or, you know, you get overly offended or you have too much ego or, you know, you're not going to get work.
Yeah.
So that's kind of in day-to-day life generally how I, you know, approach working with people in this industry.
I love it. Now let's start to tie things up. I really just want to. I know you've already given quite like a lot of really good advice for anyone out there, but let's get specific to, first of all, producers. If you have any advice for producers, and then artists.
Okay. I think probably just trying to listen to as much stuff as possible. Like make sure that, well, like A, it just increases your palette. B, it gives reference points to your palette, and you can be like, you know, like, I don't know, like, it allows you to kind of understand where certain musical movements are coming from.
Yeah.
And, you know, so if someone's like, cool, I want to reference this artist, well, you can kind of, like, if you understand the lineage of music and the history of music, you can kind of be like, cool, well, that is actually coming from this earlier time frame. So, like, I can work with that. It just kind of expands your possibilities, you know?
Absolutely.
I guess that was also a big thing that my dad really kind of tried to instill in me, like the understanding of like, hey, like we're listening to this band, but this band was heavily referenced by this person, which was heavily referenced by this person, kind of vibe, you know?
Yep. Absolutely.
Yeah, so I think just listening is to a lot of stuff is a really good kind of starting point. Also, like, yeah, just understanding that you're there to help the artist, and sure, they might be paying you. But sometimes I think there's like a toxic trait where it's like, cool, the artist needs the producer. Like, yeah, you know, like you're there because they've instilled trust in you to work on their art. And I think with that, like, it comes a lot of responsibility. You know what I mean? So, you know, appreciate that somebody is kind of, you know, given you this opportunity to work on their art with them. And I guess then to move into advice for artists, like, yeah, like don't be afraid to kind of hold your ground and, you know, don't allow yourself just to kind of be, you know, stepped on, I guess, or, you know, like what we're talking about with like someone like Yo before. It's like, no, you do production, like, you know, like understand that, and back yourself in it. But also, you know, for artists, it could be, I think it's great to try to get as much education in the production world as possible. And this even goes back to like, you know, conversations that I've had with Grace Morat, where, you know, she was like, I wanted all these things when I was working on my album, but I just didn't know how to ask for them because I didn't have the language. You know, so like trying to understand the language is like important. You know, just it just removes that barrier. Otherwise, you're just going to end up feeling frustrated the whole time, and like you're not getting what you want.
Absolutely, and your hands are tied behind your back in a way because you're at the mercy of what that person is going to do if you can't ask for things.
Exactly.
Yep.
Exactly. But then I guess to flip it back to the producers, like a good way is like make sure, you know, you're taking the time to try and get that information out of people and understand that. Just because you know what saturation means or whatever, that they might not. And like, you know, be creative in how you try show them. Like literally show them the plugin, literally show them the, you know, variety of what that does. Or, you know, if they're like, I want my song to sound like XYZ by whatever, like, you know, kind of take some time trying to unpack what they actually like about that song.
Yep.
Because often it's just something like, oh, I just like that little synth up in the background or whatever. Or I like, you know, like the way that the bass is pumping. Like, yeah.
I love it.
That's
I love it.
kinda
Well, this has been awesome, man. Thank you for joining me today.
Thanks for having me. I hope I make sense. I hope you can get something from all that rambling.
Oh, absolutely, man. Absolutely. Where can people find you?
On Instagram, JT McRae. So it's MCRAE. Yeah, that's probably good place to start. And I've got links to like Spotify stuff there and all the fun stuff that I'm working on.
Anything that you have Twitter. Anything you want to plug?
No, I'm kind of I've been doing a lot of touring lately.
Stay in touch.
I'm back in the studio, a little bit. Kind of working on some solo project stuff actually, which might see the light of day later in the year. That's beautiful. Been a bit of fun.
Unreal.
But yeah, man.
Awesome.
It's been awesome. Thanks for having me.
No worries. Well, thanks to everyone for watching and listening today. Do all the normal stuff, like, subscribe, share. And yeah, we will see you next time on What's That Sound podcast. Thanks for listening to What's That Sound. Make sure you hit follow or subscribe on your podcast platform to stay up to date with each new episode. We'll catch you next time.